The challenge and preparation. The Xeraxian Empire had dominated the Andromeda cluster for over 2,000 years. Their technological prowess, combined with their natural physical advantages, dense musculature, exoskeletal reinforcement, and neural processing, speeds 3 times that of most sentient species, had allowed them to subjugate or protect nearly 30 civilizations across 12 star systems. Emperor Vex'ahlia, the 17th ruler of the bloodline, had never known defeat in personal combat or galactic conquest. Humanity, by contrast, was the newcomer. Having achieved faster-than-light travel only 73 years prior, Earth and its 3 colony worlds remained a curiosity on the galactic stage rather than a recognized power. The United Earth Coalition maintained a small but well-equipped defense force, though most alien civilizations regarded human military capability as primitive at best. The transmission arrived without warning on a quiet Tuesday morning, interrupting all broadcast channels planet-wide. People of Earth, the massive figure spoke, his iridescent scales shimmering under the lights of what appeared to be a throne room. Emperor Vex'ahlia's translator rendered his clicks and hisses into flawless English. Your expansion into the Andromeda cluster cannot continue without proper assessment. Admiral Helena Chen, commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces, watched the broadcast from the Pentagon's Strategic Command Center, her expression unreadable. As is Xeraxian tradition, all species must prove their worth through combat before being recognized in galactic affairs, the Emperor continued. I personally challenge your finest warrior to face me in the sacred arena on our capital world. Should your champion survive 3 cycles of combat, humanity will be granted diplomatic recognition and protected expansion rights. A murmur spread through the command center. Should your champion fall, Vex'ahlia's mandibles clicked in what human xenologists recognize as their version of a smile. Earth will become a protectorate of the Xeraxian Empire, with all resources and technologies placed under our supervision for the next 500 years. The transmission ended with coordinates and a time frame. 14 Earth days to respond. He's not giving us a choice, General Santos muttered. This is a lose-lose situation. Admiral Chen shook her head. No, it's a challenge we need to accept. She turned to her staff. Get me Major Elias Reed. Immediately. 3,000 meters below the Himalayan mountain range, in a facility unknown to the general public, Major Elias Reed was completing his daily training regimen when the summons came. At 34 years old, Reed was the product of Project Vanguard, a classified program developing enhanced human capabilities through a combination of genetic optimization, neural interfaces, and advanced combat training. While not physically imposing at first glance, standing 5'11", with an athletic but not bulky frame, Reed possessed abilities that defied conventional human limitations. His reflexes operated 70% faster than an Olympic athlete's. His skeletal structure had been reinforced with carbon ceramic composites that made his bones nearly unbreakable. His neural implants allowed him to process combat scenarios and adapt strategies in milliseconds. But his greatest asset was something the project scientists had never anticipated: an anomalous ability to intuitively understand and counter any combat system after minimal exposure, what his handlers called adaptive intuition. You're saying I'm going to fight the Emperor of an alien empire? Reed asked, his voice calm as Admiral Chen briefed him on the situation. That's exactly what I'm saying, Chen replied. And the fate of humanity depends on your success. Reed's eyes showed no fear, only calculation. Tell me everything we know about Xeraxian combat techniques. The next 10 days transformed the underground facility into a war room dedicated to a single mission. Xenobiologists created detailed models of Xeraxian physiology, identifying potential weaknesses in their exoskeletal plating. Intelligence analysts compiled every scrap of information on Vex'ahlia's previous combat encounters. Engineers worked around the clock to modify Reed's combat suit with adaptive technologies specifically designed to counter Xeraxian advantages. Reed himself spent 18 hours daily in specialized training simulations. Robotic opponents programmed to mimic Ziraxian movement patterns attacked from all angles while he developed countering techniques. Neural feedback loops allowed him to experience accelerated combat scenarios, compressing weeks of training into days. Their exoskeleton is strongest at the joints, contrary to most Earth arthropods, Dr. Yvonne Park explained during one briefing session. But there are sensory clusters along their flanks that, if overstimulated, can cause temporary neural disruption. Reed absorbed every detail, his enhanced memory cataloging weaknesses and opportunities as the team presented them. The arena itself will likely favor them, Admiral Chen added. Higher gravity, atmospheric composition designed for Ziraxian optimal performance. They'll want to humiliate us, not just defeat us. Reed nodded. Then we adapt. Modify my suit to compensate for gravitational differences. Install atmospheric filters to neutralize any chemical advantages they might employ. There's something else, General Santos interrupted, looking uncomfortable. Our deep space intelligence suggests the Emperor has never actually lost a combat trial like this. When challengers come close to winning, accidents happen. Reed's expression didn't change. So they cheat. We believe so, Santos confirmed. Reed smiled for the first time since accepting the mission. Good. That makes this a fair fight. Because so will I. On the 13th day, Reed was equipped with his finalized combat system. The sleek black suit appeared deceptively simple on the outside, but beneath its surface lay the pinnacle of human engineering. Microfilament musculature that could triple Reed's already enhanced strength. Reactive plating that could adjust density based on incoming force. Neural interface acceleration that could temporarily boost his processing speed by 300%. Nanite reservoirs that could reconfigure to form specialized tools or weapons. Atmospheric conditioning systems to neutralize environmental disadvantages. Remember, Admiral Chen told him as technicians made final adjustments, this isn't just about winning a fight. It's about showing the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Reed understood the subtext. His victory needed to be decisive enough to discourage any future challenges, yet controlled enough to avoid appearing as a threat that needed immediate containment. I'm not just fighting for survival, Reed replied. I'm establishing humanity's reputation for the next century. The journey to Zirax Prime aboard the diplomatic vessel UES Emissary took 3 days. Reed spent most of it in meditation, conserving energy and mentally rehearsing combat scenarios. The Ziraxian honor guard that met them upon arrival towered over the human delegation, each warrior standing nearly 8 feet tall with chitinous armor that glinted purple-black under the red sun. Your champion appears. Inadequate, the Ziraxian commander observed, mandibles clicking in what the translators identified as amusement. Ambassador Kwame Okafor, leading the human diplomatic team, smiled politely. We appreciate your concern for fair competition. The grand arena of Zirax Prime was a marvel of alien engineering. A massive coliseum carved into the side of an extinct volcano, with seating for over 100,000 spectators. As Reed was escorted to the preparation chamber, he noted representatives from dozens of alien species filling the stands. News of the human challenge had spread across the cluster, drawing witnesses to what many assumed would be a brief and brutal display of Ziraxian dominance. Reed's chamber was Spartan but functional. A Ziraxian attendant explained the rules in clipped tones. 3 combat cycles, each lasting until one competitor yielded or could no longer continue. Lethal force was permitted but not required for victory. No outside weapons allowed, though natural or integrated capabilities were considered acceptable. The Emperor wishes to speak with you before the match, the attendant added, sounding surprised at this unusual request. Reed was led to a small antechamber where Emperor Vexolia waited, now even more imposing in full ceremonial combat armor. Up close, the alien ruler stood nearly 9 feet tall, his exoskeleton shimmering with embedded technology and ritual markings. Human. The Emperor's voice rumbled through his translator. I wanted to see you before the spectacle begins, to understand what delusion drives your kind to believe you could stand against the might of Zirax. Reed looked up at the towering figure, his face betraying no emotion. Curiosity, mostly. I wanted to see if your fighting skills match your talent for dramatic speeches. The Emperor's compound eyes narrowed, an unmistakable sign of anger even across species barriers. Your death will be educational for your species. Quick, but instructive. Reed smiled slightly. I look forward to your instruction, Your Majesty, and to your subsequent education. The Emperor's attendants bristled at the disrespect, but Vex'ahlia raised one clawed hand to silence them. Save your energy, human. You will need every scrap of it to survive the first cycle. As Reed was led away, he activated his neural interface, recording and analyzing every detail of the Emperor's movement patterns, speech rhythms, and physiological responses. The first battle had already begun, though the Emperor didn't realize it yet. The massive doors to the arena slid open, revealing a landscape designed to favor the Ziraxian combat style. Rocky terrain with multiple elevation changes, pools of viscous liquid that Reed's sensors immediately identified as mild acid, and atmospheric composition rich in compounds that enhanced Ziraxian reflexes. Reed stepped into the light as the announcement echoed across the arena. Behold Emperor Vex'ahlia, 17th of his name, undefeated champion of the sacred trials, conqueror of the 12 systems, who now faces the human challenger. The crowd's roar was deafening as the Emperor entered from the opposite side, his ceremonial armor now replaced with combat plating that amplified his already formidable physique. Let the galaxy witness as humanity proves its worth, or accepts its proper place in the order of civilization. The announcer concluded. Reed rolled his shoulders as his suit made final adjustments to the hostile environment. Across the arena, Emperor Vex'ahlia performed an elaborate combat ritual, his movements designed to intimidate and impress the crowd. Major Elias Reed, humanity's champion, simply waited, gathering data with every passing second. The Emperor might have millennia of tradition and physical advantages on his side, but Reed had something the Ziraxian couldn't comprehend: humanity's unmatched ability to adapt. The signal sounded. The first cycle began, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The duel and aftermath. Emperor Vex'ahlia charged across the arena with shocking speed, covering 30 meters in less than 2 seconds. To the alien spectators, the human appeared doomed, standing motionless as the galaxy's most feared warrior closed the distance with lethal intent. The Emperor's primary strike, a devastating blow that had shattered the exoskeletons of countless challengers before, whistled through empty air. Reed had shifted position with a fluid economy of movement that seemed impossible given the speed of the attack. Not a dramatic dodge or desperate evasion, but a precise, calculated step that left him perfectly positioned beside his opponent. The crowd fell momentarily silent. Reed struck, not with overwhelming force, but with surgical precision, targeting a nerve cluster beneath the Emperor's left arm joint that human xenobiologists had identified as a potential vulnerability. The impact was minimal, but Vex'ahlia's left pincer immediately lost 40% of its motor function. Interesting approach, human, the Emperor hissed, recovering his balance and circling warily. But minor irritations won't save you. The next exchange happened so quickly that many spectators missed it entirely. The Emperor unleashed a 12-strike combination that had overwhelmed every previous challenger in the arena's long history, a blur of chitin, claw, and precisely applied force. Reed's response defied conventional combat physics. He didn't block or evade in the traditional sense. Instead, he seemed to flow through the Emperor's attack pattern like water through stone, each movement bleeding momentum from the Ziraxian's assault while positioning for counterstrikes. Reed landed 3 more precision hits during the exchange, each targeting different neural clusters throughout the Emperor's exoskeleton. None appeared damaging, yet the Emperor's movements became fractionally less coordinated with each successful strike. "Your strategy is flawed," Vex'ahlia announced, mandibles clicking in what his species recognized as contemptuous laughter. These minor strikes cannot penetrate my armor or significantly impair my combat effectiveness. Reed remained silent, conserving energy and continuing his analysis. His neural interface was mapping the Emperor's movement patterns, identifying micro-expressions that telegraphed attacks milliseconds before they began, and calculating optimal counter-strategies. Vexillia changed tactics, employing his species' natural advantage, a specialized organ that could expel paralytic toxins in an aerosol cloud. The purple mist erupted from vents in his exoskeleton, enveloping Reed before he could retreat. "Now we end this farce," the Emperor declared, confident in his imminent victory. The crowd murmured in approval. This tactic had ended countless duels in the Emperor's favor, as most species succumbed to the powerful neurotoxin within seconds. But Reed remained standing, his suit's filtration system neutralizing the chemical attack before it could affect his nervous system. "Interesting approach, Your Majesty," Reed replied, deliberately echoing the Emperor's earlier words. "But parlor tricks won't save you." For the first time in living memory, uncertainty flickered across the Emperor's compound eyes. This was not proceeding according to any of the thousands of combat simulations his strategists had prepared. The human should have been disabled or dead by now, not calmly analyzing his next move. Reed went on the offensive. His movements changed entirely, no longer purely defensive, but flowing into a combat style no one in the arena had ever witnessed. It incorporated elements of Earth's martial arts traditions, but reconfigured into something new, something specifically designed to exploit Xeraxian vulnerabilities. The Emperor found himself responding rather than leading the combat for the first time in centuries. Worse, each exchange seemed to improve the human's effectiveness while degrading his own performance. The cumulative effect of Reed's precision strikes was becoming apparent. Small disruptions to neural pathways, minute reductions in reaction time, fractional limitations to joint mobility, none fatal or even seriously damaging alone, but together they were creating compounding disadvantages. As the first cycle neared its end, the Emperor committed to a desperate gambit. He activated hidden enhancements in his exoskeleton, technological advantages explicitly forbidden by the sacred rules, but secretly employed when necessary to maintain the illusion of Xeraxian invincibility. Energy fields crackled around his limbs as he launched an attack that would have pulverized concrete. "Let us see your human adaptability survive this." Reed didn't attempt to evade. Instead, his suit flashed with microscopic adjustments, nanites reconfiguring its structure in real time to absorb and redistribute the massive energy of the Emperor's attack. The impact echoed through the arena like thunder, kicking up dust that momentarily obscured both combatants. When visibility returned, Reed stood firm, his suit showing minimal damage. More shocking to the audience, he had somehow locked the Emperor's right arm in a joint manipulation that threatened to crack the exoskeleton at a critical stress point. "Interesting technology, Your Majesty," Reed said quietly, though the arena's acoustics carried his words to every spectator. "Not exactly within regulation parameters, is it?" Before the Emperor could respond, the signal marking the end of the first cycle sounded. Reed released his hold and stepped back, his breathing controlled and steady. The Emperor retreated to his preparation chamber, mandibles clicking rapidly in what his attendants recognized as rare agitation. "They're going to escalate the cheating," Reed informed Admiral Chen through their secure communication link during the brief rest period. "His armor contains at least 3 categories of prohibited enhancements, and I detected signs they're preparing environmental adjustments for the next cycle." Chen's voice came through the neural link. "Can you counter it?" "Already adapting," Reed confirmed. "But we should be prepared for diplomatic fallout. When I win, they'll need to save face somehow." Chen noted his use of when, not if. "Focus on survival and victory. We'll handle the politics afterward." The second cycle began with a noticeably different arena configuration. The gravitational field had intensified by 15%, Atmospheric composition had shifted to include performance-enhancing compounds that benefited Xeraxian biology, and portions of the ground now conducted electrical currents. Reed's suit compensated immediately, redistributing internal support structures to offset the gravitational changes while his filtration system adapted to the new atmospheric challenges. More importantly, his neural interface had completed its analysis of the Emperor's combat patterns, allowing Reed to predict attacks with 89% accuracy. The Emperor emerged with visible modifications to his combat armor, additional plating, enhanced servo mechanisms, and what appeared to be energy projection capabilities disguised as traditional ornamentation. "Your courage is admirable, human," Vex'ahlia announced for the benefit of the increasingly attentive audience, "but this cycle will demonstrate the natural order of the galaxy." Reed responded with a slight nod. "I look forward to your continued education, Your Majesty." The Emperor attacked with renewed fury, his augmented systems pushing his already formidable capabilities to new heights. Energy fields shimmered around his strikes, threatening to overload Reed's defensive systems. The human champion found himself genuinely challenged, forced to employ his full range of enhancements and training to survive the initial onslaught. But survive he did, and more importantly, adapt. With each exchange, Reed's neural interface refined its understanding of the Emperor's new capabilities, identifying patterns, limitations, and opportunities. Where the Emperor relied on raw power and technological advantage, Reed employed efficiency and precision. The crowd's mood was shifting. What had begun as entertainment, watching another species learn its proper place in the galactic hierarchy, was becoming something unprecedented. Delegates from subjugated worlds leaned forward in their seats. Ambassadors from neutral powers exchanged meaningful glances. This was no longer merely combat. It was potentially historic. Midway through the second cycle, Reed shifted strategies entirely. Rather than continuing the defensive approach that had served him well, he launched a counteroffensive that targeted the Emperor's enhanced systems. Each strike seemed innocuous, glancing blows against seemingly random points on the Emperor's exoskeleton. But they followed a precise pattern. "What are you doing?" Vex'ahlia demanded after a particularly effective exchange left two of his enhancement systems malfunctioning. Reed didn't waste energy on a response. His next series of strikes disabled the Emperor's energy projection capabilities, followed by attacks that compromised joint servo mechanisms. Within minutes, Vex'ahlia found his technological advantages systematically neutralized by an opponent who should have had no knowledge of their design or vulnerabilities. The Emperor resorted to his species' natural weaponry, the paralytic toxin now mixed with a corrosive compound designed to breach protective equipment. Reed's suit countermeasures activated instantly, neutralizing the chemical attack while gathering samples for analysis and adaptation. As the second cycle neared its conclusion, the Emperor was visibly struggling. His movements had lost their fluid precision, his attacks becoming increasingly desperate and predictable. Reed, by contrast, seemed to be improving, his combat style evolving in real time to exploit every opening, every limitation in his opponent's capabilities. The cycle ended with the Emperor driven to one knee after a precisely calculated strike to a neural junction controlling his lower limbs. The arena fell silent as Vex'ahlia required assistance from his attendants to return to his preparation chamber. "This is unprecedented," Ambassador Okafor informed Reed during the second rest period. "Representatives from 7 subjugated worlds have already approached our delegation about potential alliances. The Xeraxian High Command appears to be in crisis session." Reed nodded, reviewing diagnostic data from his suit. "They'll throw everything at me in the final cycle. Expect them to completely abandon the pretense of fair combat." "Can you handle it?" Reed's expression remained calm. "Their fundamental problem is that they prepared to fight a human based on their understanding of our limitations. They didn't prepare to fight humanity." The third cycle began with the arena transformed. Environmental hazards dotted the landscape. Acid pools, gravitational anomalies, and what appeared to be automated defense systems disguised as traditional ornamentation. The Emperor entered surrounded by a shimmering energy field that violated every established rule of the sacred trials. "This ends now," Vex'ahlia declared, his voice amplified throughout the arena. "Your species requires a permanent lesson in humility." Reed stepped forward, his suit making minor adjustments to counter the hostile environment. "I couldn't agree more." What followed was unlike any combat the assembled species had ever witnessed. The Emperor unleashed the full might of his enhanced systems: energy beams, localized gravity manipulation, sonic attacks designed to disrupt neural function. The arena's hidden systems activated simultaneously, turning the entire space into a death trap designed specifically to eliminate the human challenger. Reed's response redefined what the gathered civilizations understood about adaptation. His suit's systems evolved faster than the attacks targeting them, developing countermeasures to threats it had never encountered before. More impressively, Reed himself seemed to anticipate the arena's transformations, positioning himself to avoid hazards seconds before they activated. "Impossible!" The Emperor raged as another combination attack failed to eliminate his opponent. "No species can adapt this quickly." Reed pressed his advantage, targeting not just the Emperor's combat systems, but the arena controls embedded in his armor. With each precise strike, portions of the arena's hazards malfunctioned or deactivated entirely. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the balance of power shifted visibly. The Emperor, who had never known defeat, found himself systematically dismantled by an opponent who seemed to understand his technology better than he did himself. "Your empire is built on intimidation, not superiority," Reed observed as he disabled another of the Emperor's enhanced systems. "You've confused fear with respect." Vex'ahlia roared in fury, abandoning strategy for rage-fueled attacks that played directly into Reed's approach. Each wild strike left openings that the human exploited with methodical precision, targeting neural clusters and technological weak points that compounded the Emperor's deteriorating performance. The final exchange happened so quickly that many spectators couldn't follow it. The Emperor committed fully to an attack that would have sacrificed his own safety for assured destruction of his opponent, an unheard-of desperation move from a ruler known for calculated cruelty. Reed's counter defied the understanding of even the most advanced species present. He moved through the Emperor's attack as if it existed in slow motion, his suit interfacing directly with his enhanced neural system to execute a sequence of 17 precisely calculated strikes in under 2 seconds. When movement ceased, Emperor Vex'ahlia lay immobilized on the arena floor, his combat systems completely disabled, neural function in his limbs temporarily but thoroughly disrupted. His exoskeleton remained intact. Reed had caused no permanent physical damage, but the Emperor of the mighty Xeraxian Empire could not rise from the ground. Reed stood over his fallen opponent, breathing controlled and steady. "Do you yield?" The arena fell into absolute silence. In 16 centuries of sacred trials, no Xeraxian emperor had ever been asked this question. This is impossible," Vex'ahlia managed, his translator struggling to convey his shock. "How did you? Do you yield?" Reed repeated, his voice now amplified through the arena's communication system. The Emperor's compound eyes flickered between Reed and the assembled galactic representatives witnessing his humiliation. Centuries of dominance teetered on this moment. "I yield," he finally responded, the words barely audible. Reed stepped back and addressed the arena directly. "Humanity doesn't seek dominance or subjugation. We seek understanding and fair exchange. Remember today not as the defeat of your emperor, but as the beginning of a more balanced relationship between our civilizations." The aftermath transformed galactic politics. The Xeraxian Empire's reputation for invincibility shattered. 7 previously subjugated worlds declared independence within a month. Trade delegations from 32 civilizations arrived at Earth within the year, seeking alliance with the species that had humbled the supposedly unbeatable Xeraxians. Emperor Vex'ahlia never personally appeared in combat again, though he maintained his throne through political maneuvering. Historical records would note that the emperor who had conquered 12 star systems was ultimately defeated not by superior strength or technology, but by something the Ziraxians had never considered a threat: humanity's unparalleled ability to adapt. Major Elias Reed returned to Earth not as a conquering hero, but as a quiet ambassador for human potential. When asked about his victory, he offered the same response that would eventually become Earth's unofficial motto in galactic affairs: "Our greatest strength isn't what we are, it's what we can become." The sacred arena on Zirax Prime was eventually repurposed as a galactic diplomatic center where conflicts between civilizations could be resolved through negotiation rather than combat. At its entrance stood a simple plaque commemorating its transformation, bearing words attributed to an unnamed human diplomat. True power isn't measured by victories in battle, but by battles made unnecessary. Centuries later, xenohistorians would identify the duel between Emperor Vexillia and Major Elias Reed as the pivotal moment when the galaxy's power structure began its shift from domination to cooperation, all because one supposedly insignificant species refused to accept the limitations others had defined for them. In diplomatic circles across the galaxy, a new saying emerged when any civilization displayed unexpected ingenuity or adaptability: "They're pulling a Reed." It wasn't always meant as a compliment, but it was always, without exception, delivered with respect.